All right, listen. A lot of what we call love is really fear and insecurity with the greatest marketing campaign of all time. Think Disney princess. Knight in shining armor, love at first sight, happily ever after, with no real conflict resolution, no communication skills, and no accountability past the credits rolling. Keep in mind, Ariel didn't even speak for most of the movie. Ooh, let me give you some tea. I'm giggling because my whole life, the two Disney princesses that I'm compared to is Princess Jasmine and Pocahontas. Yeah, my looks, my hair, whatever. I'll even go as far as to say my personality resonates with both of them. But as I got older, the storylines, that's the part that hit me at my big age. Both were royal, both were independent, both did not need the man. Both didn't even like him at first, but both were simply curious. The men weren't chosen because they chased. They weren't chosen because they controlled. They weren't chosen because they applied pressure or demanded access. The men chose to get to know the women and lead with intention and authenticity. He was then chosen after she watched him move, after she saw how he led, after he proved character through action, not possession, after conflict, after the danger, after shared growth. I'm gonna let y'all take that and read a little deeper into my personality on your own time. I digress. But deadass, the marketing is genius. The pretty but empty words, the grand gestures replacing consistent and intentional actions, the toxicity and passion sold as true love and connection. And we cannot forget the sex. You know, the mind-blowing, soul-shifting sex that distracts you from the lack of transparent communication and true intimacy. The kind of sex that makes you say, this is true love, while everything else quietly feels fake as fuck. Now, mind you, if you're lucky, the toxic passion is doing the heavy lifting where intimacy is supposed to live and love is supposed to grow. Then you tell yourself, this is good enough because this is my forever person. Meanwhile, I'm over here single like, these ninjas keep confusing passion with chemistry and sex for intimacy and really trying to lock a bit down. I might get a little passionate about this one. I'm not going for it. Y'all out here controlling as hell and calling it care. Jealous and calling it protection. Possessive as fuck and calling it commitment. Y'all like to ghost, withhold affection, use silence to punish each other, then turn around talking about, I'm just protecting my peace. No. You are avoiding accountability. Oh, and the sex? Sex is not intimacy. Sex is sacred energy exchange. Energy as in soul. Sex ties the soul, but without intimacy created through transparent communication, the sex tricks the mind and the heart into believing everything is deeper than it actually is. That's how you end up bonded without being connected. That's soul ties without love. That's toxic passion and sex cosplaying as chemistry and still lacking the communication necessary to create intimacy. That's the part that be having y'all out here looking stupid. Out here fucking and spiritually attaching to folks that can't even talk for real. I might get a little passionate. All right, let's bring it back to our history. Because history is definitely repeating itself. Black love had to exist under constant pressure. We didn't get the luxury of softness. We didn't get the steadiness of slow. We didn't get the safety to communicate our emotions without consequence, much less get the space to actually learn how to communicate our feelings safely. We didn't get the opportunity to experience love and connection created through true intimacy. Love had to survive rape, violence, separation, economic strain, relentless instability, and inhumane degradation. Sexually, we got to be honest about this part. I need you to understand that intimacy literally had to find a way through buck breaking, breeding farms, and the complete removal of sexual autonomy, forcing our ancestors to endure the horrors of sexual slavery. Meanwhile, you weren't allowed to communicate much at all, much less transparently. You couldn't speak up for yourself. You weren't allowed to speak up for others. You were not allowed to express how you felt. And yet intimacy still found a way back then. Black love, Black families, and Black wealth still formed and thrived in our communities. But today, we literally run from intimacy. We downplay it. We mock it. We call it corny or soft or doing too much. That's mental slavery for your ass. With that being said, generationally and today, when you're raised in survival, protection becomes the priority. Safety becomes the primary goal. Endurance becomes the virtue. Sex becomes the substitute. Control gets mistaken for care. Possession gets mistaken for commitment. That's why people think being wanted means being loved. That's why jealousy feels flattering, why silence feels safer than a conversation. That's why passion and sex become the bridge instead of transparent communication creating connection. While people are definitely being toxic out here, we also got to acknowledge people are being conditioned too. And until we stop confusing fear and insecurity with connection and intimacy, we're going to keep calling this dysfunctional ass bullshit true love and wondering why dating, relationships, and marriage in the Black community feels so damn hard and why they keep breaking in the loudest, most ugliest ways. But it doesn't have to be hard. The reason it feels hard is because a lot of us were taught intimacy equals access. Access to your body, access to your time, your energy, resources, network, money, loyalty, without access to your inner world. That's possession, not intimacy. And possession always collapses under pressure. Intimacy is not, you mine. Intimacy is, it's easy to talk with you when I'm uncomfortable. I'm free to disagree without fearing punishment. I'm able to say that I'm hurt without you turning it into a power struggle. I feel seen and understood without being manipulated and controlled. That's true connection. That's true intimacy. That's true love. And this level of connection, intimacy, and love requires transparent communication. Not vibes, not passion, not sex, not matching energy. Let me put my cup down. Communication. But here's where y'all fuck it up. You want closeness without grown and mature conversation. You want passion and sex without taking accountability physically and emotionally. You want intimacy and love without working through tension and conflict. And it do not work like that. Because intimacy is built through tension, not by avoiding it. This is why jealousy keeps getting confused for care. You think, if they jealous, they must love me. If they checking for me, they must see my value. If they pressed, I must be the prize. No. That's literally the language of fear exposing your insecurities. Like, you literally sound pathetic. Care asks questions. Jealousy monitors your behavior. Care creates a safe space. Jealousy restricts your freedom. Care seeks to understand. Jealousy uses manipulation to control you. Care builds true connection. Jealousy builds resentment. Oh, and silence? Silence is not peace. Silence is avoidance cosplaying as maturity. Silence is what happens when someone doesn't feel safe enough to speak honestly or doesn't want to deal with the consequences of speaking their truth. Peace actually requires real conversation. Silence creates anxiety while delaying the explosion or delaying the drift. This is why so many relationships feel calm to the public eye, but are completely disconnected and dysfunctional behind the scenes. Nobody's arguing, nobody's fighting, nobody's tripping, but nobody's having real conversations either. No sharing your true desires, no setting and respecting boundaries, no communicating your expectations, no real and actionable repair that creates long-term change and stimulates real growth. Just vibes, access, and sex with unspoken and unresolved tension. That's not intimacy, that's proximity. You're not close, you're just there. And let's be fair, both men and women do this. Men avoid conversations because they were taught emotions equal weakness. Women avoid conversations because they were taught harmony equals love. So everybody quiet, everybody frustrated, everybody lonely, but fucking. That's not connection. I don't know what you call this dumb shit. Mutual avoidance? I don't know. Child, anywho. Healthy communication isn't about being nice. It's about being honest without manipulating, dominating, and controlling. It's about saying, this is what I feel. This is what I need. This is what I can and can't do. This is where I'm confused. This is where I need understanding. This is where I'm hurt. This is where I'm satisfied. And then this part is key. Staying in the room long enough to let the other person respond. Not interrupting, not defending, not flipping it back on them, not minimizing. Listening to truly understand, not to win. Saying things like, I hear you, that makes sense. Tell me more. I didn't realize it hit you like that. Have you ever practiced the skill of empathic listening? Repeating back what you heard before responding to make sure you actually understood what you heard? That is one of the most powerful communication and conflict resolution skills that exist. Learning this and many other communication and conflict resolution skills is how safety is built. That's intimacy. Not sex, the conversation after sex. Not passion, the chemistry built through repair. Not jealousy, the care created through consideration. Not possession, the connection established through presence. If you cannot communicate through tension and connect past conflict, you don't have intimacy. You have proximity, and again, if you're lucky, some passion. But passion without communication only ends two ways. Somebody is going to become manipulative. Let me get my words. Somebody is going to become manipulative and controlling, or somebody is going to collapse into silence and create distance. Because without mutual safety in truth, there is no intimacy, only jealousy, only possession. Which brings me to the next thing. Why so many of y'all avoid conflict, but still expect closeness? The contradiction. It be killing me, and it's killing Black love too. Because avoiding conflict while expecting closeness is like wanting muscles without ever lifting a weight. Make it make sense. Disney got y'all thinking closeness is built through romance and passion. It's not. Closeness is built through friction, through tension, through the hard conversations when things get uncomfortable. not by pretending you're madly in love and performing a perfect relationship for your audience. A lot of y'all avoid conflict because somewhere along the way, conflict got associated with loss. Loss of love, loss of self, loss of safety, loss of autonomy, loss of connection, loss of the relationship itself. So now instead of saying, hey, this hurt me, you swallow it, bury it, convince yourself it didn't matter. Instead of saying, I don't agree, you smile, dismiss it, or pretend you're on the same page. Instead of saying, I think I need something different, you adjust, maneuver, or start to over accommodate. And you call that maturity? You call that love? No, that's insecurity. That's fear. Conflict isn't the actual threat. Unspoken tension, building resentment is. Because what you don't say doesn't disappear. It stores itself in the body, in your tone of voice, in your distance, in your lack of desire, in your passive disrespect, in the way sex stops feeling connected, in the way affection feels forced, in the way love slowly turns into obligation, into a chore. Like I said before, this is why some of y'all would rather end a relationship with people than have one hard conversation, because starting over feels clean. New person, new hope, new fantasy. Repair feels risky. Repair requires humility, accountability, staying present when your nervous system wants to run. And again, on the flip side, some of y'all stay way too long because you're afraid conflict will confirm what you already feel. That the shit ain't working, that y'all ain't aligned, that love alone simply isn't enough. So you avoid the conversation to keep the peace, keep the proximity, keep the sex that's cosplaying as intimacy. Meanwhile, you lose yourself quietly, slowly, and completely. That's not loyalty. That's fear of change. Healthy conflict doesn't destroy intimacy. It literally deepens it. When done right, conflict says, I care enough to address this. I trust us enough to stay in the room. I value the connection more than I value my ego. That's mature love. That's grown and sexy love. And when it's black, that's legacy love. But let's be honest, most of us hardly ever witnessed healthy conflict growing up. We either saw yelling or silence, violence or withdrawal, submission or domination. So now when tension shows up, our body and mind panics. And instead of transparent communication, we manipulate and take control, or we get quiet and disappear. This is where our history plays a part every time, because for generations, Black folks speaking up had dire consequences. Talking back could cost your life. Expressing emotion could cost your safety. Challenging authority could cost your freedom. So silence literally became strategy for us. Compliance became protection. Endurance became a virtue. And that programming, it didn't just vanish. It's standing 10 toes down in our relationships. So now intimacy feels extremely dangerous, because intimacy requires your voice, your truth, your vulnerability, your presence. It requires conflict handled with care. And a lot of us never learn the skills. If you avoid conflict, you will never experience the depths of true intimacy and real love. You might experience passion, you might experience attachment, but intimacy and love, nope. Not like this, never. Because intimacy lives on the other side of transparent communication, and love only pulls up when it's real. Transparency isn't loud, it's clear. It sounds like, this isn't okay for me. I need something different. I'm willing to work through this. I'm willing to walk away if we are unable, ... That's not manipulation. That's self-respect. That's self-esteem. That's self-love. That's authenticity. That's the foundation of intimacy. So if you want closeness, you got to learn how to stay present when things get uncomfortable. If you want intimacy, you got to learn how to talk transparently when manipulation or silence feels easier. And if you want real Black love, not survival love, not struggle love, not trauma bonding love, not a facade of love, but that legacy Black love, you got to stop treating conflict like the enemy in your relationships, because conflict isn't what breaks our relationships. Avoidance does. This is why we got to talk about repair next, because without understanding repair, what it is and how it works, there is no coming back. Repair, repair, repair. I feel like I'm talking to my sons or my athletes when I be telling them about recovery, recovery, recovery. I mean, it's the same concept, but for their physical and athletic repair. But anywho, repair is the difference between a relationship that deepens and a relationship that keeps restarting with a new mask. Repair is what happens after the hard conversation, after the disagreement, after the tension, after somebody said something sideways, after somebody shut down, after somebody crossed the line. Repair is not pretending it didn't happen. Repair is not let's just move on. It's not time passing. Repair is not buying gifts and going on trips. Repair is not posting each other again. Repair is not sex. That's avoidance using manipulation with better PR and marketing. Repair is, I see where I hurt you and here's the change. I understand that landed. I understand how that landed and here's the reframe. I'm willing to change how I move and here's the solution. And then actually doing it consistently. Because apology without adjustment is just manipulation with premium PR and marketing. This is where a lot of relationships die quietly, even if they stay together. Because people want forgiveness without accountability. They want access restored without change behavior. They want closeness to return without doing the work that builds a safe space. That's not repair. That's entitlement. Repair requires emotional stamina, emotional fluency, emotional fluidity, and emotional intelligence. Stamina is staying in the conversation when your chest tightens, your tone wants to shift, and your ego starts pacing. Not tapping out, not storming off, not saying, I'm done, just because it got uncomfortable, okay? Emotional fluency is being able to name what's actually happening instead of swinging at the nearest emotion. I'm hurt instead of just being angry. I'm scared instead of trying to control. I feel dismissed instead of you attacking. Emotional fluidity is knowing when to soften, when to pause, and when to speak. Not every moment requires a response. Not every truth needs to be delivered like a weapon. Sometimes the power is in slowing down, not doubling down. And emotional intelligence, that's understanding the difference between being right and being connected. It's recognizing when your nervous system is reacting and choosing not to let it run the room. That means sitting in the discomfort without defending, without flipping it, without minimizing, without dragging up old shit to avoid the present moment. That's grown. That's repair. And humility, let's be real. Humility wasn't modeled for a lot of us. We weren't taught how to say, I was wrong. I see it now. I didn't handle that well. I want to do better. We were taught power, not repair. So now learning humility feels like weakness. when really it's the strongest thing you can practice in love. In many Black households and generationally throughout history, authority was rarely questioned. Parents didn't apologize, adults did not explain. We were told, because I said so, fix your face. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. What goes on in this house stays in this house. So now, as adults, when someone says, that hurt me, our nervous system hears, you're wrong, you're bad, you're about to lose something. And instead of repairing, you react. Some of you react with control. That can look like explaining, justifying, gaslighting, shifting the blame, talking louder or longer. Some of us react with withdrawal, silence, distance, avoidance. I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it. I'm over it. Both are fair responses. Neither builds intimacy. Real repair sounds boring to traumatized people. It's slow, it's repetitive, it's consistent, it's not dramatic, which is why a lot of folks confuse chaos with passion and boredom with peace. But peace isn't boring by far. It's just unfamiliar to you, and unfamiliar is scary. Repair is how safety is built. Safety is how intimacy grows, and intimacy is how love actually lasts. Not survive, not endure, last, and creates legacy. This is why some are in on and off relationships, constantly repeating the toxic that they know. And some people keep attracting the same person in different bodies, still repeating the toxic they know. Because you never learned repair. You only learned repeat and replacement. And repeat and replacement feels easier until you realize you're carrying the same patterns into every new beginning. Here's the extra grown part. Some of y'all for sure ain't ready for this, but Big Mama gonna take you through there anyways. Sometimes repair reveals incompatibility, misalignment, or the fact you never loved each other in the first place. You were only attached. And that's okay. Repair isn't about forcing something to work. It's about seeing clearly whether it could. While majority of toxic relationships end because of conflict or the avoidance of conflict, some end peacefully because of clarity. And clarity at the end of a relationship is not failure, it's growth. Black love with the power to build legacy isn't perfect, it's practiced. Practiced communication, practiced transparency, practiced accountability, practiced presence, practiced repair. It's two people saying, I'm willing to unlearn survival so we can build something safe and solid together. And if you're doing this work single, even better, because learning repair now means you stop bleeding on people who you didn't cut, and you stop cutting people who were sent to love you. It means you enter relationships with skills that build love, not just a hope and a prayer that you'll find it, or even worse, it'll find you. So as we move forward in love, especially in loving Black, this is the question to sit with. Can I stay present when it's uncomfortable? Can I listen without defending? Can I repair without controlling? Can I choose growth over ego? Because that's where intimacy lives. That's where love matures. And that's how Black love stops being a survival story and becomes many great legacies.